Hello, my name is Yulia Horva. This is News Pulse at UATV. Welcome to the daily segment. Today in the episode, Ukrainian forces strike one of Russia's biggest Wildberries warehouses in Vladimir region. Concerns about tariff authority in Russia's sanctions bill undermine universal support for Ukraine. Putin is going to continue the war against Ukraine. Kremlin dictator has ordered to prioritize defense funding in Russian budget for the next 3 years. A fire broke out in the logistics center of the Wildberries company in Vladimir region of the Russian Federation. Footage of the fire appeared on social networks. The company reported that the acceptance of goods and the shipment of orders have been temporarily moved to other facilities. The area of the logistics complex is almost 172,000 square meters. This center is considered one of the key hubs, ensuring the distribution of goods between the Moscow region, as well as the central, northwestern, and northern parts of the European territory of Russia. New Magura naval platforms, equipped with FPV drones, destroyed 2 Russian military radar facilities in temporarily occupied Crimea. The successful operation was carried out by soldiers from the Group 13, Special Forces unit of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine. They destroyed the control vehicle of the Podlot radar system, as well as the radar interrogator of the Parole 4 friend of foe identification system. Thus, Magura is now capable of engaging targets not only at sea, but also on land, taking the use of these platforms to a new level. Ukrainian intelligence stated that there will be no place for Russian occupiers in either the waters or the skies above the Black Sea. Gasoline didn't reach Crimea, and many system forces of Ukraine destroyed Russian fuel tankers transporting fuel. This was confirmed by the commander, Robert Madar-Brovdi. The convoy, along with military trucks, was discovered near the temporarily occupied town of Primorsk in the Zaporizhzhia region. The targets were engaged by fighters from the 414th Separate Magura's Burst Brigade. The attack destroyed 2 fuel tankers and an escort vehicle. The United States and Ukraine are discussing the possible transfer of the technology for the production of Patriot systems. Congress insists that the White House and the Pentagon must act as quickly as possible, as daily Russian strikes on civilian targets in Ukraine are killing people. This was stated by U.S. House Representative Mike Turner. When asked whether the United States would allow the licensing of Patriot production in Ukraine, given Donald Trump's comments about the difficulty of transferring such technology, Turner explained that the president was simultaneously discussing Tomahawk missiles and Patriot systems, and negotiations on this issue are still ongoing.
The actual quote that he said, he was talking in that paragraph, he was talking about Tomahawks and Patriots. They also went on to say that the negotiations were ongoing. It is very, very difficult on Patriots, which are defensive. In the quote, actually, it included Tomahawks, which are also offensive. I do think that there are ongoing negotiations concerning providing a broader opportunity for Ukraine to have access to Patriot technology, to be able to have production and defensive technology. This is going to be very important both for allies and for Ukraine.
Senate consideration of a bill imposing new sanctions against Russia is being delayed due to disagreements over the U.S. president's tariff authority, the Washington Times reports. The bill is supported by more than 80 senators, a conceding bipartisan majority that should have ensured swift passage. However, the process itself has been delayed by a dispute over expanding Donald Trump's authority to impose high tariffs on major buyers of Russian oil and gas. To mitigate objections, the bill's authors proposed not to apply tariff to countries that account for less than 15% of Russian gas exports. Senate leaders hope to find a compromise and pass the bill before the legislative recess begins on August 8th. Dictator Putin has ordered that defense funding be prioritized in the Russian Federation budget for the next 3 years. Despite record military spending, the Russian budget deficit continues to grow, and the government is forced to cut civilian programs and increase the national debt. All of this is a consequence of the war unleashed by the Kremlin leader against Ukraine. More about problems in the Russian economy in our next story for you.
The Russian economy is on the brink of collapse. This is the conclusion reached by analysts from the Kiel Institute for the World Economy and the Stockholm Institute of Transition Economics. Because of its refusal to end military operations on the territory of Ukraine, Russia has faced a labor shortage and disruptions in the supply of various goods. The Central Bank of the Russian Federation sharply raised its inflation forecast for the country. It increased by 1.5 percentage points and reached 6 to 7%.
In June, price growth accelerated. This was mainly linked to the situation on the fuel market, as well as to the renewed rise in prices for fruit and vegetables, which had fallen atypically sharply in the spring. The rise in fuel prices is beginning to spread to a wide range of goods and services. This was reflected in inflation expectations, which rose significantly in July.
Budget revenues are already falling short of expectations, and the deficit for the first half of the year has already approached 6 trillion rubles, and it continues to grow. Despite this, Putin ordered that priority financing for the defense sector be included in Russia's federal budget for the next 3 years. If almost 13 trillion rubles were allocated for the national defense item in 2026, actual spending may turn out to be another 4 to 5 trillion higher, experts say. But the Kremlin dictator stubbornly insists that everything is fine with the state's economy.
There are major pluses from today's policy. What is the main plus? The stability of the current economic and financial system.
Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia's spending on the war against Ukraine has already exceeded $746 billion. According to experts' estimates, these funds would have been enough to finance Russia's entire healthcare system for 28 years, or the education system for 30 years. But Putin prefers to spend these resources on the war.
According to the results of the first half of 2026, Russian industry has effectively stopped growing. The Kremlin is preventing industrial statistics from falling by relying on military-industrial complex enterprises that have priority access to budget funds, raw materials, equipment, and personnel. The rest of the industry operates under opposite conditions: more expensive financing, a shortage of workers, a reduction in orders, and a deterioration in financial condition. As a result, the gap between the military and civilian sectors continues to widen. From a statement by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine.
Additional difficulties for the economy are being created by long-range strikes of the Ukrainian defense forces on the warehouses of the largest Russian marketplace. Fires at its hubs may have consequences for thousands of sellers who risk losing their businesses, which could affect loan repayments, taxes, and the banking sector. On the night of August 2nd, the Wildberries logistics center in Novosmaykino in Russia's Samara region came under drone attack. The complex, with an area of almost 180,000 square meters, is one of the company's key terminals in the Russian Volga region. The center ensures the distribution and delivery of goods for the Samara region and neighboring areas, supporting the operation of the Wildberries logistics network in the central part of European Russia.
Strikes on the Wildberries system are a strike whose ultimate goal, oddly enough, is the banking system. That is, strikes on Wildberries are only the beginning of a chain reaction across Russia's economic system.
In recent weeks, Ukrainian long-range drones have attacked Wildberries logistics centers almost 20 times in different regions of Russia and on the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea. As a result of these strikes, a significant part of the corporation's warehouse infrastructure has been damaged, which, according to Russian media, has already forced the marketplace to look for new warehouse space, including in Kazakhstan. Russian entrepreneurs are calling on the authorities of the aggressor country to support representatives of small and medium-sized businesses who suffered as a result of Ukrainian strikes on Wildberries warehouses so that they can continue paying taxes into the Russian budget.
Wildberries cannot repay loans to the banks, and neither can all its clients, because all the money and all the goods were taken on credit. The largest client of VTB Bank, the second largest systemic bank in Russia, is precisely Wildberries. Now it is insolvent, and this means that the bet VTB once placed on Wildberries has completely collapsed.
The fundamental causes of the current crisis are directly linked to the war against Ukraine, experts say. The unprecedented increase in military spending has led to an overheating of the financial system and an acceleration of inflation. And the Russian authorities bear direct responsibility for the deepening fuel crisis and the growing problems in the economy, because it is precisely the war unleashed by the Kremlin that has become the main factor destabilizing the domestic market. Reported by Natalia Husak, UATV News.
That's it for today. I'm Yulia Horva. Thank you for watching this segment. We appreciate your time and effort a lot. Please also share, comment, subscribe to UATV. We got you covered on whatever tomorrow holds for all of us, always in Ukrainian perspective. Stay safe and see you tomorrow.